All right, what's up, guys? My name is Zach, and today I'm driving a 2017 Dodge Challenger 392 Scat Pack. It's a lot of words, but basically I'm driving a V8 Challenger in manual in Las Vegas. Up front is a 6.4-liter naturally aspirated V8, and down below is a 6-speed manual transmission. If you want to read more of my thoughts, head on over to carmarshal.com/overdrive. We'll be writing a complete article about the Scat Pack. But let's get back to that 6.4-liter. Well, it's really a similar engine block to the Hellcat. The Hellcat's a 6.2, but this is 6.4. It's just bored out a little bit. So essentially, it's sort of the same block, sort of not. Take that as you will. Now, the most interesting thing, I think, about this particular car is that it's a 6-speed. The Hellcat that I drove, which I will link to the Hellcat review either now or at the end of the video, the Hellcat I drove was automatic, so I've never driven a manual Challenger. And honestly, I like it a lot. It's really easy to drive, surprisingly. Most muscle cars are because they have so much torque. If you're not so great with the clutch, it's very, very forgiving because the torque kind of fills those gaps. That being said, one weird thing about the shifter is that it's kind of crooked off to the left, which it's facing the driver, but when you first get into it, it's a little awkward to get used to because you feel like it's broken. One other thing about the shifter, because I just felt it and forgot about it, is the skip shift. The Challenger will try to persuade you to shift higher to save fuel. There is supposedly a delete for it, but as of right now, this car is completely stock, and it's kind of annoying. But because it's not a Hellcat, because it's naturally aspirated, doesn't mean that it's down on power at all. And backing up that power, this Scat Pack has 6-piston Brembos, which are absolutely awesome. They help the car stop on a dime. And it has 275 rear tires, which definitely help out with traction. Although it's not impossible to break this thing loose. The first time I got on it, it did get a little bit squirrely, which I wasn't really expecting. Now, as you'll notice, this car has a shaker hood. The reason it's called a shaker is because when the engine shakes, it shakes too, and you can see it shake. But it is a functional air intake, as well as there is a air intake in the headlight like a Hellcat. So this car, I think, would be really good in the desert, which is where we are essentially, because the air intake temps stay so cool with the headlight intake as well as the shaker hood. So because it's a Dodge, we have a lot to talk about with the interior. In front of me, there are 2 actual gauges and then a screen in the middle. The screen in the middle will tell you literally anything you want to know about the car. I'll flip through a couple different things here. You can literally know anything you want to know about the car in the middle screen. Then to the left is the tachometer, which is an actual gauge, and on the right is a speedometer, which is an actual gauge. On the steering wheel, I get cruise control options, my screen options for the screen that I just talked about, and that's really it. It's not too much of a cluttered steering wheel, and I really like that. I don't like when there's too many buttons on a steering wheel. It makes everything really confusing, and then when you turn the wheel, everything's not where you left it. In the middle, you get another giant screen that again will tell you everything you want to know. This is where you'll find the SRT performance pages. So if you're into stuff like that, I'm sure there's a million websites that'll tell you everything that you can go through there. I literally don't have time to talk about everything that this will tell you. Then down below that radio, you get your radio controls. So you actually do have tactile radio controls. Again, I really like that. Some touch screens have, touch feedback, and that's fine, but I really like having actual tactile buttons. This is also where you can turn off traction control. You can turn off, or you can put it into sport mode rather. And then you get your air conditioning controls. Something also to mention about the interior is that these seats are heated and cooled, which is a really, really nice feature. I won't be doing a back seat review just because I did one in the Hellcat, and because these are basically the same chassis, the back seats are going to be the same. You're still going to see me struggle in and out of them. Nothing really new there. That being said, though, I don't know what it is. I think the seat sits a little bit higher up, but this car is a lot easier to see out of than the Hellcat. This sill just either seems lower or I'm sure it's just the seat position, but honestly, I feel a lot more comfortable driving this because I can see out of it a lot better. The Hellcat was really hard to see out of. Another little quirky thing about the interior that I find really funny is that on the passenger air vent, it actually says shaker. Because this car does have a shaker hood, I get it, but I don't understand why car manufacturers just kind of put words random places in the interior. I was at a car show recently and they had the Smokey and the Bandit Trans Am, and I was looking at it, and on the door handles it says 4-wheel discs. No idea why it says that or why they have to show that off, but they do. Another little quirky thing is that on the windshield it actually has a Challenger. So the windshield actually has a little drawing of a Challenger, which I think is really, really cool. Another interior quirk is the handbrake, or really what I should say is foot brake, because it's actually a foot pedal all the way over to the left. You kick it down, and then to release it, there's a little, obviously, foot brake release. Not a big deal, but when I first got into the car, I didn't know where the handbrake was. And it's weird that it's a pedal. It's really old-fashioned, but it works as a brake, so that's all you can ask for. One thing I did fail to mention in the Hellcat review was that there is a rear view camera in the rear spoiler. So it looks really flush. I didn't even notice it on the Hellcat, but it's really nice that it has that feature. Actually, all cars built in 2018 on are required to have backup cameras, but obviously this is a 2017, so that was an option, and honestly a really helpful one. Oh my, it just made me skip shift. So the interesting thing about this car is, like I mentioned earlier, and I've been mentioning throughout this whole review, is that I've driven a Hellcat before. And so the Hellcat is kind of the bigger brother to this car. It's the highest trim level of the Challenger. Well, now there's the Demon, but at the time that this car came out, the highest trim level was the Hellcat. And obviously there's a huge power difference. This car makes mid 400s to 500s. People have dynoed it at different numbers. And the Hellcat, obviously, as everyone knows, is the 707 horsepower, sure. But that's really the only downside to the Scat Pack. I really, really enjoy driving this car. It's a very well-designed car. It's very comfortable. Dodge does a very good job at that. It's a very comfortable car. As you can tell, I'm not screaming like I have been in other reviews because there's tons of sound deadening in here. It's comfortable, it's powerful, you can spin the tires, it's manual, so it's engaging. This would be the best Challenger if there was no Hellcat, because of course the extra power bump is nice. But think of it like the Kia Rio would be the best car in the world if there were no other cars ever made. That's kind of what I'm getting at here, is that if the Hellcat was never made, this would be the best Challenger, and it really is a really good Challenger. If you're looking to get into muscle cars, this is a great car to pick up. Like I said, it's really forgiving with the clutch. If you had never driven manual before, it definitely has enough power to spin the tires. You're not going to be losing a whole bunch of races, but it's not the nearly unaffordable Hellcat or Demon. And as you can tell now, we are driving on the Strip in Vegas, which is awesome. Quick little Vegas review. Don't come here if you have ADHD. Don't come here if you're epileptic or if you have a gambling issue. But if you do come here, you're going to see some really weird things. You're going to see a lot of lights. It's essentially a town that if you took 1,000 people and asked them what they wanted to do this weekend, and then you just built a building for each of that. That's essentially what this town is. It's really surreal to be driving on the Strip right now in a Challenger, shifting gears, downshift. Oh, like a champ. This thing is so easy to rev match. Also, in the true Vegas spirit, as you'll notice, the outside visuals of this car were taken in the world's largest gentleman's club parking lot. So I don't think we can get more Vegas than that. Just thought we'd do that for fun. Give it a little rip for the Strip. All right, just got a little bit sideways on the Strip. No big deal. About to pass in front of Caesar's Palace. God, this is so surreal. There's an episode of older Top Gear where they took 3 cars into Vegas, and one of them, I think Hammond took a Challenger in, and it's almost like living a little childhood dream. Oh. So if you're looking for a muscle car, if you're looking to get into muscle cars, Or if you just honestly want something powerful that's comfortable and not out of your budget completely, the Scat Pack is definitely a car to look at. Like I said, it has enough power. I mean, I did say earlier, yeah, the Hellcat has more power and that would be nicer, but that's not to, to shame this car. 500 horsepower is definitely an adequate amount of horsepower for really any sane person. You can get them in manual, like this one. I've been having a blast shifting gears. It's a really easy transmission to get used to. There's no, twin puck clutch or anything like that. It's really, really easy driving experience. And just overall, if you don't have $1 million to spend on a Demon, this is definitely a car you should look at. So I want to thank you guys so much for watching. If you want to read more of my thoughts, head on over to carmarshal.com/overdrive. But again, I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to rate the video, comment on the video, and subscribe if you really liked it. Take care, guys. There goes a sight from my soul.